they have an agenda. Like that. So he saw that there were so many forces which were acting like that, and then he quit his business and then he started a total in the introduction it was said he dedicated his life for the study of what was happening there, and then he came into Indology, and then he realized what sort of wealth we are having and then what type of attack is going on the Indian society. And just to give an example, we all know that the world is a global village, and in every village you have got the village, some two or three people fighting for the village supremacy, and all the rest of the people, common people, they are all forced, they are all coerced, they are all threatened, intimidated in so many ways to fall in line with them, to support them. If you are not with me, you are my enemy. So something like that, the village environment goes on. The whole world, now that it has become a village, the whole world, the situation is like that, two or three powers. So they want to have their own followers, and then on their own terms, not their allies. They don't want allies or friends, they want their followers or servants. So that sort of situation is going on now. And for that, India is almost, it is a highly vulnerable place where me, and then that person, he picks him up and creates some trouble within the family and tries to break the family. So India's position is like that. Basically, somebody is trying to incite some disaffection within a group here, and then say that you are all people who are either suppressed or you are discriminated against or something like that, and then try to create these differences. So how do they do that? The universities play a major role, as I said. Then again, these are the people, the scholars who studied the fault lines in all the countries and then study the ways in which they can divide the society. And there are so many NGOs which also function simultaneously. They work in tandem with all these intellectuals. And various ideas, novel ideas are imposed or rather introduced into these targeted countries to destroy the social fabric, the social system. And then again, there are studies, for example, in India, if we take, there are studies like the subaltern studies. We didn't know about this. Earlier, we were only talking about post-colonialism and the damage which the colonial masters did. But then now there are subaltern studies, basically, and also the theories like the critical race theory, to make us feel guilty. One section is made to feel that they are the oppressed, and another section feels that they are the guilty people. And the middle ground is almost lost because the agenda of these people is to create a total division in the society. So that is what is happening. And technology is also being used. Technology, yesterday we had a very, very illuminating talk by Rajiv ji and Vijaya ji about how technology is being used to uh, basically distort our minds totally. The entire, whoever is using social media and whoever is actively using social media, we can assume that our dossiers are being maintained. If somebody wants to have a dossier on me, they will certainly have a dossier. So what my behavior is on the social media and how I have commented on so many occasions with so many people. So all that material will be there. They can, and not only that, they can also manipulate our thinking and how our institutions can be weakened. So that is also an important aspect. How the religion can be weakened, religion can be attacked. If you want to break a country, there are so many ways. Religion is one of the targets, saying that in this religion there is this particular system, this varna and jati being equated. So things like that. And again, institutions, educational institutions being targeted. For example, he has written a book on the battle for the IITs. IITs, they are supposed to be the bastions of a particular, say, upper caste group. So that is the allegation that is made, and they are blamed on that count. And they are also they are also planning, or rather planting their own institutions within India, and with all the novel ideas like the woke ideas and then the critical race theory and all these ideas. And foreign institutions which are basically controlling our narratives. All these points I'm just mentioning the titles on all these points. Rajiv ji, and he will elaborate on them because It is directly from the horse's mouth. You will listen from all these about all these things, and criticizing our language. For example, saying that the language Sanskrit is a language of oppression. This is one thing which was a shocking news for me, having studied Sanskrit for a long number of years. To hear that Sanskrit is a language of oppression by a particular community to suppress the whole society, that was something which is shocking and a very baseless allegation. So, like this, there are so many ways in which these Western agencies have been creating nuisance, not only in India but in all other countries. So that is again, which is there just like in a village. So then Malhotra along with some other, sometimes a co-author or sometimes individually, he has written more than about, to my knowledge, about 15,000 pages, huge volumes. He has written so many books on all these subjects. I just mentioned the topics. He has written books, voluminous books on all these topics. And I first read his book called Breaking India. And I really felt I felt that I didn't know anything. Having worked for such a long time in police, I felt that I didn't know so many things, so many networks which were operating against India. I was totally ignorant of those things. Not only me, but many other colleagues. Even today, there are lot many people who have not read the Breaking India and leave alone the latest book, Snakes in the Ganga. It is like that. Reading his books is something which is very much necessary for the integrity of the country. That's what I feel. And you are the people, particularly, there are so many assistant professors and young professors here. You are the people who have to take this study forward and then continue in fact, he has given us a particular direction. And in that direction, all these young people have to do further research and then take the struggle further. And of course, we do have some hope. Why some hope? I certainly have a lot of hope. If only we study our tradition properly, nobody can shake us. I always think that anybody may try to interfere with our country, anybody may try to interfere with our culture. But if we are very strong, if we know our roots, if we read, like Vivekananda says, if you should be very sure about your own culture. And he very strongly said, Vedanta is the religion of the future, he said. So if we read our own tradition, then we will never be shaken by anybody, and our values can never be shaken. So that is what is my opinion. I do have some hope about in spite of all these threats, I am still very optimistic and hopeful about it. So, but the point is, we all have to collectively take this struggle forward. So with this request and with this note, I wish to thank the organizers for having given me this opportunity to share a few ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Shri G. Lakshmanji, National Joint Organizing Secretary, ABRSM, to address the gathering.
Honorable Rajiv Malhotra sir, Madam Vijaya Viswanathan ji, Professor Arvind Rao garu, Mr. Kishan sir, and eminent personalities before me, and faculty from different parts of the country. Good morning to everyone. I'll take this opportunity to congratulate and thanksgiving words why this program planned. So thanks to Arvind Rao garu first. Because getting Raju Malhotra this time to this audience, I know how much difficulties it is. A very precious time, and we are very grateful to you, sir. So you asked us to make use of Raju Malhotra sir's time, and then I thanks to Raju Malhotra ji from my bottom of heart. He make it convenient and he accepted to be with us. Yes, I am remembering you, sir. We met 2018 September month in Chicago when World Hindu Congress program is happening there. I extended my invitation to sir to be with us. Sir, we will organize some programs. Immediately, what he told, yes, I will come. But he shared for a small while. He said that, so we are all working. How long we have to work? What next generation is doing? We need more people to work on this. The way that he said, so definitely we will plan in such a way where young minds can come together. So today, that day, sir, it is always remembering me, and yes, a day will come, we can organize this kind of program. So here we invited very selective delegates. All the delegates, they paid 1,000 rupees as registration fee. They came on their own from different parts of the country. Delegates are from central universities, state universities, national institutions like IIT, NIT, and other no, from IISc and from other prominent national institutions. Faculty members are here. Sir. All are connected to this philosophy, this ideology. They want to do something for the nation. So instead of, as you said, no, people will speak more, but in action, they want to do something. So to make it possible, this is a beginning, sir. We invited this, I guess, gathering here, and we expecting you to enlighten us, to sensitize us, and we Mission 2047. Okay, though it is national Indian knowledge system and sustainable growth and self-reliance, we make it a subject. For that, though, post lunch we have a uh, panel discussion where Anil Sahasrabudheji, who is the former chairman for AICTE, now is the chairman for NAC and NBA, is coming. And here with us, Vinayak Rajat Bhatt, who is a young faculty member who did extemporarily work in the Indian knowledge system. He is with us. And IIM Nagpur director, Viswanathan Maitreji, he is also coming here. And these people are going to speak on different aspects of the Indian knowledge system and Mission 2047. But you make it confirm, Mission 2047. So there are so many hurdles in between, which we have to definitely we have to address. It is precondition, I can say. So that is the narrative building. And I'm requesting each one of you, go into the details about the study and the literature that has been produced by Rajiv Malhotra ji and Vijaya Madam ji also. He did extensive work. Today, he's going to speak with us. And you feel free to ask any kind of questions because you are going to lead the intellectual team, intellectual group, academia. You're working in the academia. And in the beginning, I told you are now you are the intellectuals. I want you to become the leaders of intellectuals. You have to lead this intellectual war, I can say. So for this, you need a consistent work with mind and heart. Morning, Vijay Rao sir, the way he said, really that should be mantra for us. Mantra. Whatever the words, each word is very, very, very important. So with these few words, I'll conclude my Thanksgiving session and thank you once again, sir. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Professor Vijaya Viswanathan to address the gathering.
Sarvebhyah. It's an honor to be here, and I would like to make some brief statements as to what we have learned. Most of you, I'm assuming, are from the social sciences, uh, looking at the current problems that we have. But I'm a person from the hard sciences, so is Rajiv ji, and so are many other people in Infinity Foundation uh, that are looking at social sciences, but who all have hard sciences as the background. We launched a book called The 10 Heads of Ravana recently, where scholars from Infinity Foundation that Rajiv ji is mentoring, each of them have taken up one personality. And Rajiv ji can talk more about how this project came about. And they have given a critique, a rejoinder. And these are people like Ramachandra Guha, Wendy Doniger, Shashi Tharoor, people like that. And all our scholars have backgrounds in fields like astrophysics, computer science, electrical engineering, and other fields. What I'm trying to say is that we all feel that social sciences is everybody's business because the damage done by social sciences is so enormous. And we're feeling, and we see that this damage is all pervasive in all fields. In the book Snakes in the Ganga, we show that this damage you can see in the government, this damage can be found in the educational system, it can be found in the Niti Aayog, it can be found in corporations in the form of ESG, it can be found in every walk of life and thus affects every one of us. And that is why, as much as the social scientists are coming up with theories, it's unfortunate that people in the hard sciences have to come step up to the plate and give rejoinders. And this is also something that we can learn from, because the scholars that Rajiv ji has been mentoring are all rooted in rational thinking, and for us it's very easy to give rejoinders. The only difficulty we have is the language of social science, which is made very obscure, very difficult to understand, and it's almost like they try to make simple ideas really complex just to show some sort of scholarship. So hopefully with this new movement, we will find more and more people coming up, stepping up and giving rejoinders. And the book, The 10 Heads of Ravana, is a stunning example of that. Our scholars have worked for over 2 years, read all the works of these eminent scholars who have platforms, who have power structures, they have provided rejoinders. And we even invited them. We had a conference in Delhi, and we invited these scholars, and they didn't show up, of course. But this just goes to show that a new era in social sciences is coming up, and this era is marked by scholars from the hard sciences. So with that, I will give it back to the chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time. May I now invite Rajiv ji to address the young scholars conclave, young academicians conclave. Thank you so much.
How do you? Not so much. Namaste. Wonderful to be here, especially since I was told that there are a lot of social scientists here. Can you, with a show of hands, raise your hand if you're a social scientist, which means sociology, anthropology, any humanities, English honors, history honors. Wow, this is make my day. Good. So, the most important thing is to understand frameworks. Framework is the drishti, the siddhant, through which you can understand specific situations. So, for example, we have in our tradition many frameworks. West has their frameworks. So Marxism is a framework, feminism is a framework, there is a social justice framework. All these are frameworks. And in our culture, in our civilization also, we have so many frameworks. Like, for instance, Natya Shastra is a framework for interpreting dance, and we have the whole Sankhya philosophy is a framework for seeing the cosmos. Like that, there are many kind of frameworks. So, what we are witnessing is a clash of frameworks. We're witnessing a clash of frameworks because when you install a certain framework in a child, then the child will experience the same things through that framework, and his or her brother or sister who got different framework installed in a different education system will see the same experience differently. So framework is what shapes your experience. And you can colonize people by putting your framework in them, and then they start thinking the way you want them to think. That is the framework also. If you change the legal law and the constitution, you change the framework in which people are operating. If you change the rules of cricket, it's a different framework. IPL, this one-day cricket is different framework than test match, So you play differently. So framework is very important. And the one thing common in all the work I have done and will be doing is to focus on frameworks rather than example here, example there, because facts, there are plenty of facts. Everybody can get the same facts and put them together, but without a framework, it doesn't make any sense and there's no purpose. Now, framework discovery of other people, and framework construction from my side, which means I have to understand your framework so well that when you are talking, I know, I know why they're saying this. I know where they're coming from. I know the history of this framework. I know its strengths. I know its weaknesses. I know how to counter argue. And then I have a framework I want to explain and educate to people, my readers, through my books. This is a better way, different way to look. So now the frameworks is a very big topic. All the hard sciences are frameworks. Physics tells you the framework for the behavior of nature. What you say laws of physics is basically this electron is going to move like this, the high tide, low tide, the eclipse, whatever, all the physical phenomena can be explained through the framework that we call physics. Similarly, chemistry is a framework and medicine is a framework to study diseases. But what about society? The frameworks to study and understand society is what with social sciences. That's social science. So when many years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I got this idea that we should have Indian traditional knowledge systems. It was not a field at that time. And the reason we got this idea is that I was looking at why is China respected more than India? And in one of the conversations I had with Robert Thurman, who's a Tibetan scholar at Columbia University, very dear friend of mine, very aligned with the Indian thought, he said, somebody called Joseph Needham at Cambridge produced 30 volumes on the history of Chinese science and technology, and all the studies of China all over the world have that in their library, in their syllabus. So when they study China, they're looking at it as a framework of logic, science, Whereas nobody in India has done that. Indian knowledge systems and history of Indian contributions, nobody has done that. There are little articles here and there. And therefore, when they study India, they don't have the Indian framework. They all look at it as some magic and some superstition and some guy doing this ritual make no sense to them. And this is some caste going on and
millions of gods, all that stuff. They do not have the Indian framework because the Indian job people haven't done it. So I took it upon myself to develop a series. We published 14 volumes called The History of Indian Science and Technology. It's available. You can go to our website and you can look at them. History of Indian Science and Technology, we produced 14 volumes to create the framework of what is our contribution. And each year we would meet somewhere. We met in Jaipur, in IITs, in Indira Gandhi Center, in various places we met, in Deccan College. And every year we would bring a large group of knowledge, technocrats, scientific people to study the history of Indian science. We wrote things like on Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, textiles, metallurgy, iron pillars, agriculture, all kind of knowledge systems. The idea was that we'll first study the hard physical contributions because there is proof. Nobody can deny the iron pillar, you can study it like that. So wherever there's proof, only we will study. Our original goal was we wanted to do 25 to 50 volumes on the hard material sciences. We only did 14, we did not get support. We ran out of resources. The second thing we wanted to do was life sciences. Life sciences meaning agriculture, botany, healing, health and all that. We wanted to do many, many volumes and we have proposals for that, but nobody supported us. Then we wanted to do mind sciences. This meditation, yoga, all this cognitive science. I'm still personally working on my own series, mini series on Indian mind science. I will produce it myself. Almost got it finished, but I will do that. And then we wanted to do social sciences, society. Rashtra is the social knowledge. So Indian knowledge system. Now the strange thing is, at that time, there was no interest on the part of all the Hindu organizations today which are very interested. IITs were not interested. I went and talked to a lot of them. Ministry of Science. Later on, Murli Manor Joshi got interested and he promised we'll get a lot of support, but the government fell, nothing happened. And I remember I went to Kapil Sibal. Later on, he became the education minister. He expressed that he will help us, but nobody helped us. So this is, I'm just telling you that we've had this very long relationship. And now, Indian knowledge system and traditional knowledge system is very good buzzword, very fancy. I meet people every time I come, there's a lot of conferences, a lot of things happening. Indian knowledge system now being studied widely. So I'm very happy it is being studied widely. But let me give you my view on what is shortcoming. First of all, and the reason I'm saying this is because your conference got Indian knowledge system, traditional knowledge system, the banner. So first of all, it's not enough to study a fact that they had this big discovery, they had that big discovery. Where is the framework of the Indian thinkers, the rishis, from which they got this knowledge? Two things. One is, what is the framework in which the rishis were operating to do their discovery? How did they discover? It did not fall from the sky. It's not like the Abrahamic religions that God speaks to Moses and says, this is the truth. There is no God speaking in the Vedas. No God is saying, I'm Brahman, I'm telling you, I'm a jealous God, I'm angry, say, do this, do that. There's no dictation. The rishis are not taking dictation. So this discovery from the rishis comes how? What is the framework? Producing. So it's like, if you know the roots, then you can understand the fruits. But if you just eat the fruits, you don't know what is the root producing it. You do not know enough about the fruits, where it's coming from. To know where it's coming from is the roots that are producing the fruits. So the framework is like the roots, and it produces this output. So I have not seen enough work done which talks about what is the framework in which traditional knowledge was discovered. How was it discovered? How did they suddenly find out velocity of light? Okay, everybody says this is velocity of light. They had no measurement equipment. How they discovered it? So you see, the methodology of discovery of traditional knowledge is very important for us to figure out. And that methodology requires insight into the framework. So that is my area of work, is to figure out these frameworks. Second thing, there's one issue I feel that the lot of applause comes when they say this is 8,000 years old, everybody clap. But you have to look at what went into building that city or building that technology. How were they thinking? What was the philosophy, the metaphysics which led to those outputs? Because the outer world, concrete things that happen in the outer world from a person, is the result of how they are operating inside. Then they express outward. This artist has a certain imagination, then they express themselves. The dancer has a certain framework, and then they are expressing themselves. So, what is the framework from which the Indian knowledge system came? Is a piece of work still waiting to be done? This is a very important point. Second thing I found when I went to ICSSR, which is Indian Council of Social Science Research, social sciences people would know how important it is. Even in the new government, one Mr. Malhotra was the member secretary. I'm embarrassed to say he's not any relative of mine, but he didn't understand my point at all. I went many, many times. I tried to explain that under the rubric of Indian knowledge systems, there is also social sciences, because social knowledge is also Indian knowledge. It is Indian traditional knowledge. The knowledge of Varna, Jati is Indian traditional knowledge system. The knowledge of Rashtra is Indian traditional knowledge system. It is not only physical, how you make metallurgy and all that, that is one kind. But the Vedas are very clear on the idea of Rashtra and the idea of Rajya. It is Vedic knowledge system. So, but I don't see people doing it like that. This is why we have a constitution disconnected from our roots. The constitution is not in the Indian knowledge framework. Constitution is not. The idea of the liberty and this and that, democracy, individual, that is all Western thought. Western thought. In fact, in 1935, there was a British enacted some act and they produced a big document. 80-90% of the Indian constitution is copy of that. Any legal person will tell you. So it is not even something original. We took something the British did to govern us, and we kind of changed some buzzwords and said, hey, it's our constitution. We have not produced a constitution which could be considered Dharma Shastra for modern Bharat. I've told them that we should have a project called Dharma Shastra for modern Bharat. And I mentioned this to a couple of very leading Indian thinkers in Delhi. One of them got the Padma Bhushan. They're well-known people. I don't want to mention their names because they're friends of mine. And I said, why aren't we doing that? They didn't get the point. They said, no. We had great respect for women. We had great respect for this and that. I said, I'm not talking about what was practiced, but what's the theoretical framework that represents all these practices. There's a difference between the framework, which is a theoretical framework, and the actual practices which are reflected by that framework. There's a difference. So it's not enough to say that the practice of social justice is going on, the practice of diversity is going on, the practice of all the kind of things that we have. These practices have been going on. Therefore, we don't need to do any work. We have to codify the practices into a constitution. So it becomes the guide. It can be transmitted to the next generation. You can scale it, put it in different languages. You can teach people. You can implement it. If you codify it, you can implement it. And so Indians have been the great taxonomy builders. Taxonomy is a framework. Grammar is a taxonomy for bhasha, how it's spoken. Yoga Sutra is a taxonomy framework for practicing. You can be practicing yoga without having Yoga Sutra. But if you want to transmit it, you need a formal system, and also the formal codification allows other people to argue. Some people can disagree. Another yoga practitioner can say, I think it should be this way, that way. You can argue. Then you can write commentaries. So there is like there is Panini's work on grammar, which is a framework, and then there is other people making commentaries and changing different things and adding value and all that. So we have not done justice to social sciences as traditional knowledge system. To the extent that when I have proposed even recently to the most recent people in ICSSR, saying I would like to create framework for social sciences, they don't know what to do with the proposal like this. It doesn't make sense, or they don't know how to fit. They're still thinking in the colonial framework. This is true. And then the person who is recently Prime Minister appointed some person, I think Murthy, somebody like that, who's very important in traditional knowledge systems, came to my hotel to see me, said, you're great, you've done so much work, we want you to help us. And then when I gave the range of topics of interest of mine, they could not relate to social sciences as something that belongs within the scope of their work. So you see, this is very important. We neither done the framework for social sciences, nor have we considered it part of traditional knowledge systems. So when you have people discussing traditional knowledge systems, we talk about, there is agriculture, there is cotton, there is metallurgy, there is mathematics, and all that's fantastic. But there is also idea of Rashtra, idea of Varna Jati. We have to understand those. So one of the books we have is called Varna Jati Caste. Small book. You should take a look at that. And we're presenting our framework for Indian society, how we think about society. Now, since I got off on this topic of social sciences, let me make a few remarks about how the social sciences are happening in India and what the issues are, what you need to do about it, because you are the young social scientists and you are the ones who can solve problems. So first, I will tell you that the social sciences in India that are largely a Western framework. Most of sociology talks about Western thinkers. You have all the heroes are Western thinkers. You look at I've read the NCRT book, and it is mostly Western thinkers. I've done some YouTube discussions on it a few years ago. Then you look at the UPSC, exam stuff, which is also Western thinkers. This is 8 years into a new government. We haven't changed the structure of the social sciences. There is no Vedic social sciences that I can get hold of. I mean, I want to get a curriculum, syllabus on Vedic social sciences. I mean, I can get any amount of reading material on Marxism and on Max Weber and all kind of things, new kind of thoughts on society. But I'm not able to put my hands on Vedic social sciences, properly written with rigor, with analysis, with references, logically thought out, argued, a lot of peer debates. All of that has to be done before you can say we've achieved something. Anybody can write opinions. And we're not talking about how great we were. That is not social sciences. That's just nostalgia and, chauvinism maybe. But social science is a more rigorous thing. And I'm not trained as a social scientist in college, thank God, because I did not get that bias of the colonial structure. So I'm able to figure it out thinking from fresh myself. Now, that's one observation, that the social sciences are colonized. Decolonizing the social sciences. I propose that as a topic. There's a lot of decolonization and decoloniality, and it's all about how they were bad and they robbed us and we were so many $1 trillion they stole. All that is very good, very good. But the foundation of how our civilization has been studied, socially, politically, human rights, how our society is structured, that level of approach and response to that is not sufficiently happening. Now that's one area that I'm concerned about. The second area I'm concerned about is that we are borrowing bad habits from the West. One of the recent bad habits that has entered the West is the rise of a new kind of social thought called wokeism or critical race theory, which in India they have not understood, nobody written about it, but we've been writing about it for a while. I think now suddenly all the influencers, all the YouTube influencers, and all the people doing manthans and conclaves are beginning to catch on some of the buzzwords because people are reading our book and starting to copy these ideas and take them forward. I predict that within the next year, there will be a lot of sudden experts on critical race theory suddenly coming up with talking about all this wokeism out of nowhere. And so, like the book Breaking India took many years to become very mainstream, and everybody was asked to read it, thanks to the efforts of people like Arvind Raoji, who really pushed it hard. And I would like to request that you have to do the same thing for Snake in the Ganga, because you are the champion who really knows how to do this. So, social sciences in the United States are being exported to the world. And when the NEP says that they want to have liberal arts, they're not talking about Vedic liberal arts. They're talking about liberal arts that come from Harvard, places like Harvard. So we are importing more colonization, if you think about it. Without caveat that these have to be liberal arts that are from India, by India, traditional India, where we have the 64 kalas, we have all kind of traditional thought which is liberal arts. Nalanda was a center for liberal arts. People from around the world came. It was the Ivy League of that time, if you will, across Eurasia. So we are not reviving that knowledge. We are just taking the knowledge fashionable in the West and bringing it here. Even though some people in the West have rejected their own knowledge. Westerners have rejected Freudian psychoanalysis, we are still teaching it here, like that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So the whole import of American social thought is a big craze today. It's happening through Niti Aayog. They've imported consultants to tell them how to write policies about India. Either they are American companies like McKinsey and others writing these policies, or they are Indians working for these companies. We think they must be one of us, but they're working for those companies. Their alignment is with those companies. They're writing our policies, all sorts of policies. So our control of our social thought is in foreign hands. Our people still want to go there and publish their paper, attend those conferences, get their PhD from there if possible, publish in one of those journals. So, we're continuing this mentality of inferiority complex. Now, this latest trend in social sciences in the United States is that social sciences are now controlling the hard sciences in terms of the priority of research. So now you go to Scientific American magazine. Scientific American magazine has turned woke. It turned woke. Some of the people in the editorial board are bringing whether this theory of physics or theory of some galaxy or whatever, how will it help minorities? What does it have to do with minorities? I'm trained as a physicist to discover how electron will move. And this has nothing to do with what is good or bad for minorities. You have to keep the identity politics out. But identity politics, which is really what the social sciences are based on in the Western world, this identity politics is entering hard sciences. You are finding places like Princeton University and Harvard University and Stanford and many of such places that have produced Nobel laureates in these hard sciences. You are finding some of those people are leaving because they don't want to be stuck in this identity politics. They don't want their careers to be stuck. They're going somewhere else. So this framework of social sciences being what governs and prioritizes and legitimizes and delegitimizes whatever is published in the hard sciences is a very strange thing. I mean, this will bring United States down. This will bring United States down. Because United States was not, the free enterprise started with free thinking in the academics areas, and scientific progress is phenomenal. And nobody said, is this good or bad for this community? Is this, a theory is a theory. I mean, then when the politicians are allocating budget, they can say, we'll put more budget here, less budget here. That is political decision for society and all that. But scientific inquiry should not be affected Scientific inquiry should not be suppressed because somebody says that this particular theory is not going to help a certain community, so therefore, let's not develop it, and let's underfund it and block it, and all this politics. The social sciences are bringing the politics into the hard sciences. That is a very big American thing going on. So, one of the victims of this social sciences being applied to the technology areas is the attack on IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, in Harvard, as a result of this whole thing. So you have anthropologists in Harvard. Sorry for those of you who are anthropologists. You have anthropologists in Harvard writing Indian, Ajanta Subramaniam, as an example, on the whole analysis of IITs as casteist oppression of Dalits and minorities and LGBTQ. So it's kind of identity politics driving, how to run IITs and why the current IIT structure should be dismantled. Cannot even be cured. It has to be dismantled. So this American social sciences applied to the hard sciences is coming to India. Has made some impact already. These people who come up with the attack on IITs, we have a book called Attack on IITs, the Battle for IITs. It's called book, you can get a copy. You should read it. It's not only for those who are in IIT, but in all technology, but it's actually an attack on meritocracy. It says the very concept of meritocracy is flawed because in America it's a white supremacy conspiracy to keep others out, and in India it's a Brahmanical conspiracy to keep others suppressed. This is what it said. So this type of assault on IITs started in Harvard. Then some Dalits were brought to Kennedy School of Governance in Harvard from India to there. Then they merged the Dalits in with blacks, and they said that the Dalits are the blacks of India, and the non-Dalits are the whites of India. And American racism laws should apply to Indian people in the United States. So then the first victim diaspora. So they started lawsuits against Cisco and various tech companies, charging them with racism, casteism, etc., because they're bringing IIT people, they're bringing technocrats, tech workers, and all these workers come from places like Hyderabad and other places, and they are bringing their casteist ideas into the America, as if America is a very nice, clean society, and Indians are spoiling it. This is what is the idea. So now all the tech companies from Microsoft and Apple down to Facebook and other PayPal, all of them are having these management courses on casteism for Indians and for the white people too. So now the Indians are under suspicion that you're sort of bad people, because that's what these seminars are showing. They're done by very leftist kind of people. And then HR policies are being made in these companies to reflect this bias on a caste basis, that we have to hold down Brahmins, and if the Brahmin is accused, then it's a very serious accusation. These policies are coming to India, to the subsidiaries of American companies. They are affecting Microsoft India and Google India, all of these, Apple, Amazon, all these companies. And the outsourcing, TCS, Infosys, are also going to be subject to these policies that the American social scientists have developed, and the automobile export people, and the pharma people, and the financial industry. So now we have social scientists have come up with something called diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a way to measure how much diversity you have in your company, and they come up with an index, which they are deciding what the index will be, how it is measured, and their consultants are going around Indian corporate India, based in Mumbai and other places, evaluating different companies, giving them a score. So it's like somebody else is going to pass judgment on you are right, you are not right, you are better, this is worse. You get investment, you don't get investment, like that. So this is a very dangerous thing because it's foreign control. It's like a colonial system. Somebody else is deciding these things for you, and Indian industry has accepted it. Indian industry, there's no pushback. They're all fashionable. All the young people want to go into this diversity, equity training. Okay, all the companies in Mumbai are buying into this. Great business for the foreign consultants to come in and teach all this. This is social sciences being applied to labor laws, governance, corporate governance. So it's not just, it used to be the old fuzzy duzzy left wing social scientists with the jholas in JNU. You could say, okay, who cares about that? But now the Americans have turned it into very sophisticated policies that consultants are marketing, corporate people are buying. Niti Aayog is hiring such consultants. So now this very left wing thinking is coming as human rights, social justice, a different framework, but inside is the same chip. It's very Marxist kind of thing, thinking. And Indians have not understood this. I go everywhere I go, they still ask me, why does it matter? Who cares? What are you? Abhi, अरे भैया, आप colonize हो रहे हैं. You're being recolonized. Don't dream about Vishwa Guru. You're Vishwa Chela. You're following. In social sciences, you are the chela of other people. So your social sciences, Vishwa Chela. Policy on social justice, you are chela. Policy on Indian narrative and who writes the history and who sets the policies somewhere else being done. So how are you going to call yourself Vishwa Guru? It is one thing to aspire, but you can't claim it has been accomplished. Maybe it should, I think it should happen, but it requires effort. Just because it should happen in the future with effort does not mean it has already happened. So we are nowhere close to being actual Vishwa Guru. We used to be, maybe. I agree, we probably were. And we ought to be, yes. But that doesn't mean we are, just because we've come up with a slogan. So this kind of complacency and almost like arrogance on the part of our people, and nice slogans and all that, is sort of not very good. It's sort of self-defeating because we're not putting in the effort to develop these new things I just talked to you about, the new theories that we need to come up with for ourselves. So this is the second problem. The first one I said is that social sciences are foreign, that are taught in India. The second is that social sciences have gone beyond discussion on society. They're running the corporate world, entered the corporate world, they entered technical education, they're entering hard sciences. So the social sciences have finally succeeded in implementing their claim that social sciences should be basically how you run the world. So this is like the American equivalent of the Dharma Shastras. That is what it is. This is the, Western Dharma Shastras, if you will, have been developed and implemented and put on our head, when our people just very dumb. I don't see. Hopefully after this, people will start talking, they all want to sound suddenly very smart and they all know all this and they pretend, oh, I've studied it before, I've talked about it, and they'll start saying all that. But we have been hopelessly silent on these issues. You just look at what the last few years of public discourse has been, it has been silent. And I've been writing first privately to authorities, privately to trying to influence corporate leaders, trying to influence, people in power, privately to see if they'll do something. And then finally, we decided we'll just publish it and just let the public know, because somebody should know and put pressure on it. So now, the Harvard, where a lot of this work is going on about India, guess who is funding it? Much of the funding is Indian industry. People like Mahindra. There is a Mahindra Humanities Center at Harvard. And the director of that is a very well-known postmodernist who does not think of India's nationhood being legitimate. He talks about whether nation is legitimate. and he's part of this cabal. He's a senior guy, very old, in my age or older, and he's a very well-known international figure. And they got him as the director of Mahindra Humanity Center. So that's what his card says. He decides who will speak, who will get the degrees, whose paper will be published. Not guys like us. Totally, we are out, cancelled, not allowed. It is totally the other side. So now, how you explain that at home Mahindra is a very well thought of person, and I'm sure in reality he's a good man. I don't have any reason to doubt. I met him a couple of times and found him to be a reasonable, very decent person. But how do you explain that his heart may be in the right place? At home he is doing good things, patriotic, but overseas, for many years he's been giving a lot of money to the wrong people. So somebody asked me, are you calling him a snake? Because our book is called Snakes in the Ganga. So I said, these people are not snakes, but they're feeding the snakes. They're giving them the food, feeding them, funding them, keeping the snakes. Maybe they're snake charmers also. They're keeping them entertained and happy and giving them support also, emotional support. And then there is the Lakshmi Mittal and Family Institute for South Asia Studies. They hold this very famous India conference every year at Harvard. They decide who to bring, people who we may consider as a Khalistani guy, Pakistani guy, ISI guy, separatist here, there. They come because they are well thought of in this kind of left-wing circle. They may throw in one or two politicians from India also. Rahul Gandhi is a favorite guy they bring in, some such people. I think there was a chief minister from Jharkhand who was quite notorious for conversions. He's a famous speaker there. So they come there and they talk about, is India really a democracy? And then, when that kind of discourse and that kind of discussion feeds the journalists, because there is a Newman Center at Harvard which trains journalists in collaboration with Pulitzer. So given the prestige and pride and the power of the institution, they produce journalists who go get jobs in CNN and BBC and Wall Street Journal. And then when you see all these nasty things happen like BBC film and all, you wonder, hey, how did it happen? Well, you have to see where it came from. Who trained these people? Who are the producers and who trained the producers and who funds all those things? You have to track it back. And our people are not doing that. That is why we are trying to do, is what the people in India are not doing. Maybe they don't have access to that same data that we have access to. Because some of it, a lot of this data is sitting overseas that you have to put together. So the Jai Shankar is going like with a firing extinguisher, fighting this fire, fighting that fire, responding to this, saying, okay, you said this, we don't like it. But next week there's another one. You fight against the BBCs and they have something in Geneva. So the people who are now, I call them the Breaking India 2.0. The Breaking India Forces 2.0 are ahead of our people who are reacting. Because our government does not have a machinery to evaluate, to study, to predict. We don't have a predictive model. If you raise this issue to the authorities, they get very defensive. They say, no, we know all this, we are doing this, that. But you ask them, whenever one of these attacks comes, did you predict it? After all, this was planned long in advance. I'm talking about attacks on not the physical violence attacks, but the attacks in terms of political, social attacks, against our society, against Hinduism, against the government and all, against the country, human rights type of attacks. So when these come, have you predicted them? Do you have a framework to figure out who's doing all this? And if you don't, then you are just reacting after the fact. Then, whenever there's an attack coming, you react. But that's not good enough. If you want to be a global power, superpower, you need to at least have control of your own, how you are being studied and depicted elsewhere. You have to control the way China controls their discourse worldwide. So this absence of, social thought by our own people, and this application of social thought to domains outside sociology, including technology, including science, including, corporate practices. Supreme Court of India, the Chief Justice has gone into critical race theory. He's quoting Harvard people, the same people we are fighting, he's supporting. So this is how it is. I spent 30 years fighting these people that they are harming Indian interests, and our Justice Chandrachud actually quotes them with great support that this is what he's for. He's very open about it. So, the thinkers of India have not done enough thinking, on deep enough thinking. They're very busy in events and all that, here, there. But, while certain people need to be the organizers, organizing such things, there need to be scholars like you people who are just quietly doing detailed work. And those of you who are really serious about it and would like to get involved, we are looking for research assistants, we are looking for some scholars who have such interest, but they need to be good scholars with writing skills, who published before, and who know how to organize thoughts. We don't want to mentor just starting from scratch. We want to build up people who are already accomplished and make them even better. So those who are interested and who feel that they would like to qualify and get involved in this should send us, approach us, and you go to our website and send a message, and or ask Arvind Ravji and he can connect you to us. We would like to work with such people and develop these kind of projects further. Then there's a third issue. I talked about made in USA or made in West social sciences. And second thing I talked about, the social sciences as expanding beyond the traditional role of social sciences and entering corporate governance, entering technology, in IIT, how to blame IITs, all this being done. Now there is a third issue, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, which used to be my field when I went to my computer science, I was into that. Artificial intelligence has suddenly become very powerful. But what you need to know, you need to demystify artificial intelligence. Basically, it's like you educate a child such that the child can keep learning on his or her own, through new experiences. The child is learning every time, learning something on their own. So, for instance, how the child learns to walk. The child gets up and falls, and then the muscles figure out what not to do. And then the child tries again differently, and then somehow there is success. And then the muscles remember, this is the right way. So this is how each living mechanism keeps learning through feedback. And then, you learn through your education system, you keep advancing. Now, there is something called equivalent to this called machine learning, which is how artificial intelligence works. So you train machines to make their algorithms smarter and smarter, giving feedback. So a driverless car is an example of a complex algorithm which is many sensors looking at the environment and who's going, traveling, what speed is the bicyclist going, and making decisions how to move the car. And based on the feedback, what worked well, what did not work, it changes, keeps evolving and learning. So now these algorithms are also learning social sciences. They're learning how to think about society. They're learning that your name is Iyer, and then this guy, you must be this caste, and the caste has got this thing about it. There's a profiling of the caste, right? So, or you are from such and such name, you must be Telugu. The Telugus are like this. So, like a human social thinker would know all these things, how to relate to you, how to personalize the message, how to impress you, how to bring you down or pull you up. The more knowledgeable you are about a culture, the better you can do with dealing with that people. The more knowledgeable you are about somebody's individual psychology, the more you can manipulate them. You see, so now all this insight into individual behavior, social behavior, identities, linguistic groups, jati groups, religious groups, all of this is being fed into AI systems in a very fast way. You'd have no idea how fast the AI is galloping ahead. It's galloping ahead at a rate you cannot even possibly imagine. It's learning so fast. So now we are not in control of this AI. We are the users. We are training the Western AI systems how to think about us because we're giving feedback. But the more we are participating in social media, the more they're studying us and understanding us. More surveillance they are doing. Everyone's camera with a everyone's phone with a camera is a surveillance device, and it knows when you're smiling, when you're not smiling, what you did that made you happy and all that. So there are actual studies AI people have on how many times a day you smile, or how many times you're happy or unhappy, and what you wrote, what you saw, what it made you feel, how it made you feel. A whole lot of profiling of everybody going on, and cultures going on. Our government people who are using these systems are being filed. So this means that whoever owns this AI system becomes more powerful over us emotionally, psychologically. They have psychological warfare. They can, if they can teach you, if they can lead you to buy a product and make commission from the advertisers because they're so successful in convincing you to buy this airline or this holiday or shoes or washing machine or whatever. That's because they have understood your mind and what you like. Then the same approach can also teach you who to vote for, what religion to switch to, who your enemy is that you should fight. So this business is very dangerous. It means that now the divide and rule, the divide and conquer, and the mind colonization is AI based. So we have a recolonization through AI. I've written on this a couple of years ago. I wrote a book. Before that, I was talking about it to a lot of corporate people and our data scientists and AI people and all. And again, finding that they're really kind of mixed up on whether they want to do anything about it. So I said, you know what? I'll just go publish it and let the public know. But I did not publish everything. I published enough to shake up people. So you can read I have this book called Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. It's not a technical book. You don't need to be a technocrat. It's a book on social impact, political impact, policy concerning AI. And so the wrong, or let's not call it wrong, the inappropriate social thought, as far as India is concerned, is training the future algorithms. It is what's being written in Wikipedia, it's what's being written in the Western press. That is the text being used to train these algorithms. So I was at a conference where they said, give me an example. You're saying that this AI is biased against your culture. Give me an example. So I showed them that the word swastika is considered socially inappropriate by these algorithms. They'll block you or warn you or whatever. And I said that's because you have an association, a false association, that this is something to do with Nazism. But in my culture, this is a wonderful term and has nothing to do with Nazism. And they were not willing to, they've been told that it all Nazi was similar. So this is an example of who decides how to train. It's like, how do you train children? Who decides how to train will shape the child. Same way, who decides how to train the algorithm will shape that. And people who own these algorithms are ultimately the parents, like the parents of a child. So they are in control. So then I showed them that Hitler did not use the term swastika. He used the term Hakenkreuz, which means a cross with a hook, teda cross. That is the term. And in German, that is what they called it. And British, when they later translated the German writings into English, because of their mischief, they called it swastika. So swastika is a colonized misinterpretation of Hakenkreuz. So I said to them, you guys don't even know your own history. The first time a major American newspaper wrote about this new symbol of the Nazis was an article in the New York Times in the early 1900s when this symbol came out. So I showed them a copy of this article from New York Times. I said, there is no word swastika. They have that image. They've said that the Nazis have come up with a new symbol and they called it Hakenkreuz. So even the American literature, the journalists were calling it Hakenkreuz. It is later on that you called it swastika, and everybody accepted that that is what swastika is, and Indians stupidly also accepted it. You see what I'm saying? So this is an example of who is training the algorithm. Who is training the algorithm on swastika? Who is training the algorithm on, what's the relationship of, where does caste come from, and is Dalit a Vedic problem? It's all nonsense. I will even tell you, I have in my book and also in Varna Jati Caste, I have a chapter on Ambedkar. I respect Ambedkar. But Ambedkar's idea of Buddhism was not what the Buddha taught. Ambedkar's idea of Buddhism is not what the Buddha taught. So the whole idea that, we'll become Buddhist to solve, okay, they have a right to any kind of religious they want, but they could call it Ambedkarism. They could call it Ambedkarism. That's no problem. He has every right to start a new religion. But to call it Buddhism, then the people who have been practicing the real Buddhism for all these years tell you very openly, like the Tibetan Buddhism, the people who practice, all this Dalai Lama's people, and various kinds of Chinese Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Zen, they tell you that this Ambedkarite Buddhism not really Buddhist thought. It's more politicized. It's identity warfare. It's not Buddhist thought. And I'm sympathetic with his views on how they've been oppressed and what they need to do. I'm fully sympathetic. So the question is, who gets to train the algorithms? If you look at Ambedkar's own book on big book on Islam, Ambedkar writes things which today would be called Islamophobia. They would be called Islamophobia. I've been given quotes on what is Ambedkar saying about Islam. By today's criteria, that would be called Islamophobia. You can judge for yourself. In fact, I went to one of these conferences, one of these gatherings where they had all these critical race theory and all these very liberal type people. I took 4 or 5 quotes from Ambedkar, and because they were talking about how Hindus are Islamophobic, and it was conference discussion on Islamophobia. I removed the name of Ambedkar. I just put out the quote and I said, what do you think of these quotes? Majority of the people showing up hands said this is all Islamophobia. Then I said, okay, this is written by Ambedkar. And they're all very stuck. Wow. So you see, the thing is, if you're training the algorithm, if you train them like this, saying Ambedkar had this view on Islam, then the whole algorithmic behavior on what is Islamophobia and what is Ambedkar and then it would create a wedge between the Ambedkarite Dalits and the people who are the Muslims. Are in a big collaboration in the US right now. It would create a wedge. So they're not going to allow this kind of training for the algorithm because it's dangerous for them. So you see, this algorithm is being trained in a very politically biased with agenda kind of way. So this is another big domain of where there is social science mischief. It is the mischief in the way algorithms are being trained. So I've given you a few big points I want you to get across. I mean, this is like enough topic to, if you write hundreds of pages or thousands of pages worth of books, you could go on for a full day workshop, 1 week workshop. I have no shortage of how much I'd love to talk, but I also want to hear from you. So what I would like to suggest, if you would permit me, since this is interactive, I would like to listen, I would like to get questions from the audience. Okay, so how long is the break? 15 minutes? Chai break? Quick lunch. So let's do this. Let's have a quick lunch and we'll be back at 1:30, and for 1 hour, you during lunch, you please think of questions. I only request the following. You can ask me any question, difficult, all that. I will try to do my best. If I don't know, I don't know. But stick to the topic. Let's not go off topic and talk about other things. I don't want to answer those questions. If it's a on topic on what we have talked about, there's so much to discuss right here. That kind of question I'll answer. If it is off topic, I'll apologize and say, hey, I don't. So with that, thank you for listening. Have a nice lunch, and we'll be back in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are fortunate that Dr. Nagaraju Patori, who was supposed to be in the panel, has joined us. Sir, welcome to the stage. Could you? May I now request Professor Venkata Rao, Dean Student Welfare, Department of Tourism Studies, Central University of Karnataka, to honor him. Sir. We may mention here that Dr. Patori is a senior professor with extensive experience in university teaching and research, specializing in cultural studies, linguistics, and literary studies. He has conducted fieldwork-based research on various folk cultural topics, including religious transgenderism, ritual officiating subcastes of shepherd castes, yogic mystic folk songs, and village goddess festivals. Sir is trained in Sanskrit and Advaita Vedanta by his father. He is committed to transmitting Vedic sciences to the present generation and advocates for the revival and substance of global pagan, polytheistic, indigenous cultures. We are honored to have you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a wonderful session, and we're grateful to you, sir, for the wonderful speech. You have ignited us. Indeed, we are recording our appreciation, and we'll be working hard, all the social sciences people, and we'll make a team, will assist you in your work. We assure you that, of course, with the permission of Lakshmanji. Thank you, sir. And this is time for us to say thank you. May I now invite Lakshmanji to felicitate Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Thank you. May I again request Lakshmanji to felicitate Dr. Aravinda Rao ji. Thank you. May I now request Dr. Ravindra Rao ji to felicitate Shri Lakshmanji. Thank you, sir. May I request Professor Kishanji to felicitate Professor Vijaya Viswanathan ji. Thank you, sir. Sir, may I again request, sir, may I now request Professor Kishanji again to present a memento to Professor Nagaraju Paturi. Thank you so much. May we request Professor Nagaraju Paturi to speak for 2 minutes? And thank you, sir.
Namaste, all of you. It's not fair on my part to take even 2 minutes at this hour of all of you waiting for the lunch. Google Maps algorithm, that algorithms were being spoken about by Rajiv ji a few minutes ago. It made me go round and round the same building, and I'm here late. All that I would like to say is that the time has arrived for Indic knowledge systems. The word was not heard of a few years ago. People didn't even know this word. We had sciences, physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, everything, natural sciences, social sciences, humanities, and they were not even ready to call what they are studying as a particular discipline, academic discipline, as a knowledge system. The word knowledge system was known in fields like cultural anthropology. They were talking about indigenous knowledge systems. They were talking about tribal knowledge systems of the rural people. Physics, knowledge system, indigenous. No, we are elite people, we are physicists, but we cannot be knowledge systems. But now the time has arrived when physics has to call itself as just one of the members of the entire knowledge systems of the world. And there are parallels to what they have been eliting in the university system. And the time has arrived when Indic knowledge systems are going to make a very big headway on the university campuses. And the entire Indology group is in jitters. How and why? I'll tell you in the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Professor Joshi, Department of Education, Central University of Kerala, to propose a vote of thanks.
Most distinguished experts on the dais, off the dais, and the respected delegates from various parts of the country. Today we are blessed and honored to see Rajiv Malhotra sir face to face. One thing. The thing is that this adds the beauty of this day. I'm not commenting anything on the way in which he has delivered. It's like a flow, in the sense that flow was very calm, but it was very deep, and the thoughts he proclaimed that we could not discuss in a day or in a month or in a year, so that we reach to some conclusion. So this is the beauty that he has, and the way in which he spoke, that's another beauty to his speech. So thank you, sir, for being with us in this occasion, and we are blessed to see you and blessed to hear you. And again, we are more going to interact with you. That is another part of the story. Now, the other man who I want to thank, it's Arvind sir. Actually, by when people are announcing him and all, the way in which he speak, I thought that the speech will be like a police professional, but he professed like an academic, and in nowhere he is reflected as a Indian police service person for 36 years. So thank you, sir, for enlightening the thoughts that you have shared in Indian knowledge system, and we'll try to propagate and we'll try to work together. Madam just given only few lines. All those lines are the indicators of thought. So on behalf of the organizer, on behalf of every delegate over here, I thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Then sir who came at the last, Nagaraju sir, we'll be hearing him again. So for the formality of this function, I thank you from the organizer side. Lakshman ji, who is the brain behind this function, it is not the brain behind for every function. He just planned, execute each and everything. When he called and he told me that Rajiv sir's program is arranged in Hyderabad, he's just telling like, we'll do this, we'll do that, all these things. Every scene is before him, like a director. So thank you, Lakshman ji. I know that you don't need any thanks because you are being with us. But for the official formality, I thank on behalf of the organizing committee, the ABRSM Telangana State Committee. Then the president of ABRSM, sir, thank you very much for organizing this function and making this function to achieve in a successful way. My thanks to all the delegates who come over here from various parts of the country and the media persons and all the organizing team. And at last, I thank each and everyone for being with us, for thinking about a system that we have to propagate for years from the day that we have started now. So thank you. Thank you.
Just an announcement. The delicious lunch is waiting for you. I request you to come back sharply by 1:30. I know you know how to manage the time and come back quickly so that we can utilize the time of experts. Thank you.